Hello again, and part 3 of my pamphlet against the privatisation of schools in the shape of the city academies. Academies, a lesson in failure. Academies are a failed policy. They don't bring the improvements they are touted as bringing, and the scale of their failure is shown by the way that New Labour was determined to change, expand and prop up the system. They were originally intended to improve and turn around failing schools. That has stopped, as they are now the preferred choice for building schools. The city part of their names has also been dropped, as that was considered to link them too closely with failing inner city schools. So now they're just academies. Beckett states that they are an attack on the 1944 requirement of local authorities to provide education for all children in their areas. Local authorities are now required to commission schools, not provide them directly or run them. He also cites a New Labour crib sheet to provide spin doctors with the answer they need for critics of the system, which states that they are to take schools out of the control of local educational authorities, which are to be destroyed. The return of the 11 plus. Beckett in his book wonders why the system is being promoted when it is so obviously a failure. He speculates that, apart from undermining the 1944 Education Act, it serves another purpose: the return of channeling the less able into vocational education. He notes that before the abolition of the 11 plus, the educational abled were supposed to go to grammar schools, while the less academically gifted went to technical college to learn manual or technical trades. This is coming back, with some academies specialising in GNVQs for their less academically gifted pupils. The private school, which became an academy, meanwhile, is definitely retaining GCSEs and will specialise in languages. So it's effectively hanging on to its grammar school status, even if it's not technically a grammar school any longer. Beckett states that the return of vocational education and what is effectively the 11 plus is not a policy any socialist party can openly admit to pursuing, and so Blair was bringing it in through the back door of the academies. What should replace them? In the last chapter he discusses what should replace academies. He acknowledged that they were set up to answer a real need, that of failing schools, some of which were in appalling conditions. He argues that there is a need to reform and abolish local educational authorities. There are too many of them, and some of them are very small, too small to be effective. Furthermore, less and less power and importance is being given to local authorities anyway, and education is just one of a number of services local councils provide. But he is impressed with how much people care about education, and how much time and energy local people invest in their schools. He therefore argues for the creation of local education councils whose members are democratically elected, with wide powers over the schools in their areas, and which are outside the stifling tangle of local government regulations. These LECs may choose to approach sponsors, but they would have ultimate control over the schools, not the other way around, as it is now with academies. My own feeling is that academies are being promoted for much more cynical reasons by the industrial and political elites. They give power to industry, which then gives money to the political parties. It's another part of the corruptional politics in Britain and also in America, as many of the companies seeking to set up academies over here were also involved in setting up charter schools up on the other side of the pond. Those angling to get a cut of the action in the academy change include one Rupert Murdoch, through his sideline in educational publishing. Don't laugh. Academies and Nicky Morgan's lies. This mess needs to be cleaned out, and cleaned out now. No new academies are to be built, and I fully agree with Beckett that ways need to be explored to return those that have been to full state control. They are a massive failure. So far as 25 academy changes this year, 2016, had to be taken over by the state. But you would know that from the way thicky Nicky Morgan's interview on the Beeb, where she constantly refused to answer Andrew Marr's question and just kept repeating what she'd been told about how unfair it was to keep failing schools open and deny parents the opportunity of seeing their children succeed in an academy. As we've seen, this is rubbish. Parents ain't presented with a choice so much as a command. You will get an academy, whether you like it or not. It's time to throw out the academies and the Blairites and Tories with them. Now, I wrote this 7 years ago. things have changed since. I gather from the local experience in our area that, well, the state schools were more than happy, are happy to let the clergy in to talk about Christianity to the children. The state academies aren't. They become more secular, which, you know, if you're a Christian, obviously presents more problems with your faith. As for Thicky Nicky Morgan, well, a few years ago she just went, she really went, for hog and started going on about how we needed to bring back grammar schools, and then people understandably objected to that because the grammar schools were phased out because they were exclusive and discriminated against able pupils from lower income brackets. And she said, we need to bring grammar schools back. Well, we don't, and that was dropped. But we're still left with the private academy chains telling pupils what they may or may not, effectively telling pupils what they were supposed to do and learn for their sponsors. Not good, is it? Anyway, thank you for listening.